Welcome back to You Can Homeschool. I'm Tracy Hagerman, the happy homeschooler, and I'm here once again with the lovely Pat Fenner from Breakthrough Homeschooling. So, our topic today that we're going to discuss has to do with videos and how to use videos in your homeschooling. This is a fun way to enhance your homeschooling experience with your kids. So I'm going to start off with some activities where you can use video. So one of them that I thought works really well is one of the things that we would do is we would have our kids write plays. And maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you don't want your kids to write a play, but maybe you want them as part of a drama or something to act out a play. And I know around Christmas time, a lot of people will, you know, you, use little plays to just put on a little show or whatever. Anyways, the whole point is if you're going to do it, why not record it? And the great thing to do about this is if you have older kids and it's your younger kids putting on a play, get your older child to do the recording so they can be responsible for, setting up the camera, making sure they have all the camera charge, whatever. And you can even use your phone. So many phones nowadays have so much great video features on the phone. Very easy to do. So the nice thing about this is it will provide for you a keepsake that you can look at later on with your kids, as part of their homeschooling experience. And if you have older teens, they can also add things to it. So they can add an intro, they can go online and figure out how to add, some other pictures and images to put an intro. They can have the outro at the end with, the names going. And that's going to also teach them a skill that's so needed nowadays. With COVID, so many of us ended up online, and being able to, produce little videos is a skill that we need today and absolutely into the future, because as we all know, the online is just growing like crazy. So that's one activity you can start with. So Pat, did you have any that you used in your homeschool?
No, I actually took a whole different approach to this. So I'm going to let you run with the activities, and then I'll do my sharing. How's that?
Okay. The second way that we used videos that was kind of fun is one of the things I like to do is I like to get sometimes my older kids to either read to the younger kids or to explain something. Maybe it was a math concept or something. And the reason I did this is I wanted my older child to be comfortable teaching someone else, just being able to be the person sort of in charge. So to make it fun, you can videotape it. So you can say, okay, today you're going to be the teacher, and I want you to explain to your younger sister how to do fractions, or maybe it's just addition and subtracting, whatever it is. And so they would take it a little more seriously, just knowing that the camera was on. And it's not for anyone else, but for themselves. So we say, like, take the next 15 minutes and teach your younger sibling, this little math thing. And then after the words, they would watch it, have a good laugh. So that's just another really fun way to just, play with the video, but also to get your kids comfortable in front of the video, and them knowing that it's not going to anyone else but themselves. It just puts them at ease, so that the next time that you're actually wanting to tape something that might go further, they're more comfortable because they've already done it. So it's just setting that habit, and it's kind of a fun thing to do. And I know that, if they were going to be the teacher, sometimes they might want to, dress up a little bit, or do something, be at a desk, have it set up, whatever. So this is just a little fun thing that your kids can do, something that we did. And again, I'm the happy homeschooler, so I like making things fun, as well as valuable. Another thing we is a really good idea to do is if your child is going for their first volunteer position or their first job, and they're going to meet with someone and they're going to get, be interviewed. This is a great thing to practice on a video. So we would kind of mimic the interview and go through, those common steps of coming in, looking the person in the eye. So if you're videotaping, they're looking right at that camera. Where's that camera? Shaking the person's hand. So again, we would do all these things, and then we would ask, the normal questions like, what are some of your strengths? What are some of your weaknesses? How do you see yourself fitting in here? And we would tape it, and then they would be able to look back at the tape and talk about some of their answers and say, do you think you looked confident when you were speaking, pretending that you were speaking to the manager? And so we'd sort of do that. And then what we do is we'd retape it a second time. So again, and then they could watch it again and see how they improved. And then another fun thing to do with this is I would let them switch places with me. So they could be the person who was interviewing me, and we'd tape it. So that way they had the fun of being the boss, the person in charge, but they were knowing that they were going to do a strong handshake with the candidate. So it's just, again, another fun way of them to practice an interview, so that when they went to the real thing, it just made it that much easier because I felt they had already done it. So another great way to do it. Another activity you can do is on the first day of school, we would always take photographs of the kids, and also measure their height and sometimes weigh them, just a fun thing to see every year, the progress they had. But a great thing is the very first day of school is to just take a video. So now this episode is not airing at the first day of school, but this could be a snapshot in time that you could just, after today's episode, go home and take some video and say, hey, we're homeschooling. I'm going to introduce each of the kids that are being homeschooled, and they're going to tell you what grade they're in and what they're studying. And
Or you could plan this for next year too. Just, file that away, and when you get ready for next year. I always see a bunch of these things on Instagram now, like everybody's doing this, with the signs and all that stuff. It's great.
Exactly. But I find when we get into the mode of homeschooling and we forget to do some of these
Yeah.
fun things. And then when you look back later, you're thinking, oh, I wish I had taken more photos, or I wish I had, or you're looking at them going, what year was that? How old were the kids, So that's another little fun thing to do. And if you have, a child that's really finds this fun, let them do some little snippets. Maybe they want to go outside and explain their garden that they've been planting, while they're, doing a selfie and showing their garden. Maybe they want to, explain how they take care of their pet. Let them do little snippets, little projects. And then once they do that, they can start learning how to edit their videos. And from there, they can take it on to, adding more graphics and stuff. So just, again, it's such a valuable skill to have nowadays. And I know Pat's going to talk more about this, and I know Pat has a son that has made a whole career about this. So I hope you talk about that, Pat. So the last activity I wanted to mention was a really fun one that we did. Is when the kids were younger, we were learning about volcanoes. And so what we did is we blew up a balloon, and then we took strips of paper, which we dipped in sort of half and half water and glue. And we laid them over the balloon onto I think it was just like a piece of cardboard. And what we were doing is we were using the balloon to help us shape a volcano. And we let it dry. Took a couple of weeks because I had way too much fun with that glue and water. But we let it dry. And then once we were absolutely sure it was dry, we basically pierced the balloon, which was inside. We left a little hole at the top, and we're able to remove that balloon. Came out quite nicely. We painted the volcano. We added little people, a little farm, a little village. And then we put, I can't remember all the materials to make it erupt, but anyways, you can look that up online.
Vinegar and baking soda.
Yes, there we go. Vinegar, baking soda, and red food coloring if you want it to be like lava.
And then you recreated Mount Vesuvius because you had these little towns there, and boom, they were gone.
Yes, but what a fun thing to videotape.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because the kids, I remember, now we didn't videotape it, and I regret it so much because I remember them talking about, this project went on for weeks between the, letting it dry and then painting it and letting that dry. But then when they finally erupted it, that was the talk at supper with my husband of, this is what we did. This was so fun. And I wish we had videotaped it because they were just so into it, watching where the lava was going to go. Oh, is it going to get that little pig that's sitting there? So again, some of those fun moments that you have in your kid's life, sure, a snapshot is great, but a video, it takes it captures their voice, it captures their excitement, it captures a moment in time, and those precious moments that we get to enjoy every day as homeschoolers. When they leave one day, we have those to go back to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I hope you use video in your home, but Pat's going to come with a whole other angle of some of the value of using video in your homeschool.
Yeah. Before I talk about that, I want to say while I was listening to you, I remembered a couple years ago discovering on my oldest daughter's laptop, when she used to come home from school, when she went away to college and she would come home to visit, my youngest son and youngest daughter, they're very tight, they're very close, and they used, and I didn't know this at the time, like I didn't know this till years later. They used to make little videos on her computer. She has saved them all, and they would play with backdrops. I guess my son must have been 9, which would have made Hope like 5 or even 8 and 4. Like they were little, and they did this series of videos called Life in the Golden Oldie Days. And my son at 9 years old was pretended he'd put on, and of course he went into theater. He's amazing actor. But then, so he put on his like old man kind of voice, and he would be telling his little granddaughter, who was his sister, just 4 years younger than him, about life in the golden oldie days. And they had a whole series of videos on this on my daughter's laptop. And I'll tell you, when I used to overhear them playing that sometimes in her room, but I didn't realize they were recording it. And when I discovered this, I mean, talk about like that generation being comfortable in front of like technology and all this stuff, it was hysterical. It was hysterical. So that is definitely, now we didn't use that. This isn't really using it in your homeschool, so that's a little digression, but
No, but I think what you're saying makes sense, is taking those snapshots in time. And like the very last thing I wanted to talk to mention is that using the video helps your kids get comfortable public speaking, because
yeah.
they can start with the camera. And I know that I've done a lot of live events, public speaking, and I actually find the camera more difficult than the public speaking. So if you can get them comfortable, like in front of a camera, they'll probably find it even easier in front of public, because you can interact in public, but to a camera, that camera's not doing much.
No, it's not. I know you can make a joke and get some feedback. You can meet somebody's eyes who's getting what you're saying and be encouraged. Yeah, none of that's in the camera.
Yeah.
None of that.
So it's so valuable, so valuable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I took a slightly different approach about video. Rather than actually creating them, I looked up some amazing sites where you can get video, either pre-recorded or online courses. A lot of this, I really wouldn't recommend this as your go-to for younger kids. My blog, Breakthrough Homeschooling, is primarily focused toward middle school and high school ages, and these are amazing. And I'll have lists, links to some of these and stuff, and more the descriptions in the show notes. We'll have extended show notes. But so there's different things that you could do. There's academic, and then there's like skill kind of courses. What Tracy was talking about like learning how to edit and things like that. There's a site called, I don't know how you say this, but it's PHLearn, but it's one word, so Flern, I don't know. But I don't know. But they focus on like photography, teaching Photoshop, doing editing of both video and photos, and like anything that's video or photography. They have courses on that. Another one is Skillshare, which also has a section for photography and editing. There, like it's a non-academic skills, excuse me, like how to start an Etsy shop, and how to do things like that. Which can be lucrative for your teen, if you have a crafty teen, by the way. But that's just a side note. Okay, so let's see. Quill is a site that just focuses on writing. So if you have a teen who is coming up to like taking the SATs or some, or college applications, and you're not quite sure about their writing skills, and you might not feel competent or equipped enough to actually help them. Quill just focuses on writing, and it's courses taught by writers. I mean, so it's very good resource there. Code Academy is just what it says. Oh, actually, it's Code Academy, Code Academy, and they do all kinds of courses for that for technical kind of stuff, tech stuff. Of course, some of your older teens in the day and age, the times that we're talking about, might not probably could teach some of them through Code Academy, but during one of the things that happened during the pandemic, and even this is, we're considered post-pandemic right now, but things are still just getting slower start, is the amount of like interactive live courses and live experiences that homeschoolers can have. And, learning code ideally is done like during an apprenticeship, with someone who does that. But as a second best, you can learn in some way like this with Code Academy. One of the things I absolutely adore is Coursera, and specific Ivy League schools have both pre-recorded and live streaming courses available for free. And many of these are free, and I'll note in the show notes which ones are free and which ones might have a small cost, but none of these are really breaking the bank. But Ivy League schools, MIT, and I think there was about 6 or 8 of them, free courses. Now, you will not get their college credit for it. You won't get that. But if you are putting together, and we should have an episode on this, if you're putting together a teacher-created course, and you can do this for even things like, algebra or the sciences or whatever, you can include this training. And the really cool thing about it is because you have to keep track of everything, when your student does apply to college or career, whatever they're doing, and these courses are noted on their transcript or on your backup materials to the transcript, they'll see that they were really motivated, and able to handle these. Not everybody can go to Yale, or Harvard, but you can take a class from them that they offer and, benefit from what you learn. So those are pretty cool things. And Coursera aren't the direct courses from these schools, but they are taught by teachers from these schools. So it's pretty high bar there. What's another one? Oh, if math, I'll tell you, math was my bane. It was I'm not a math person. I wish Tracy would have been in my life when I was doing that. Hippocampus offers courses on specifically algebra and geometry. And so those are like usually the opening kind of math courses in your math sequence for high school. So you can get started with them and move on from there. And those I'll have to double check, and I'll again let you know in the show notes. I think those are free as well. I'm sure by now you've heard of Khan Academy, which is just an amazing resource as well. And edX, which has over as of this recording, I think they have close to 3,000 separate courses available, all for free. You can make it part of, a good high school program has part video because you're learning from other professionals, part reading, and, you put together your reading list, part actual hands-on learning, depending on the subject is, that'll depend on what you do. And so these are all a good part of that learning process, the video. Now, of course, if you can get a live person and do, some kind of workshop or, follow even job following or something like that, or apprenticeship, that's even better than to take the actual learning and do hands-on. But at least you have this learning if that's not available to you yet, So those are, there's also YouTube has a whole section of learning. It's their education line or whatever you want to call it. And I'll put the link to that. It wasn't so easy to find in search, but I was able to locate it. And they have really different ones. They have a series one of the things I love about them is they have a series of, they call them physics girls, and they're all, because sometimes sciences and girls, stereotypically, because I don't want to, girls are smart, we can do this, but they're not really encouraged in sciences. And these are all really smart girls, and it's all girls and young women talking about physics topics, and like, showing like Tracy was talking about the volcano. So they will like actually show a concept in physics, and record it in the video. And it's awesome. It's great. There's also another one I really enjoyed was Black Women Authors, and it was a series on Black women authors. So there's a lot of really interesting snippets and interesting threads on YouTube to kind of round out your students' learning. And of course, you can have them do reports or summaries on these videos. Like, don't I'm not suggesting that you just have your kids develop a consume approach. Consume and use is I think a healthier approach to video learning. So show them how they can have a book study. Maybe if you, for example, if you have your child read about the Black women authors, then see if they can pull a book study together with some other peers and talk about some of these books. That's just one example. So anyway, there's a ton out there, and you don't want them just sitting there glued to the computer. It is a wonderful resource to get wisdom and learning from professionals that you might never have access to otherwise.
Yeah, I love that, Pat, because I'm thinking back, like a lot of times when we were studying the sciences, we were studying the clouds, or we were studying like doing experiments, or that we'd be using books and they'd go through it all. And then at the end, I'd say, okay, oh, let's say we were studying tornadoes or whatever. I wouldn't tell them in advance, but I'd say, okay, put your books away. And then way back when, I'd take videos out of the library. Okay, it's a long time ago now. But as they got older, of course, the internet and Google and everything. But I would say, okay, and usually I would pre-look them up, so we weren't wasting a lot of time just, sitting there streaming stuff. But I would look them up and I would say, okay, like the last 5 tornadoes in Canada or something. And then we'd look them up, and, there's always people taping something.
Oh yeah.
And so it would be a nice way of reinforcing what they had learned. So if they were studying clouds and they had studied, the different types of clouds, and sometimes I've had them draw them out. Okay, like we've studied, there's, I can't remember how many cloud formations, and I'd have them draw them out. And I'm like, let's go look now online and see. Let's look up the cirrus clouds. Let's look up the different clouds. And then they would actually see them. And I found it cemented.
Yeah.
For them. But because they had done the work themselves first, trying to study it in the book, trying to draw them out, and then, having that last piece, I think the order is really important, that you don't just rely on the videos, that you have them do the legwork first. But we did that so much, and they loved it. It was a nice way to round out the learning. And even with experiments, sometimes they do experiments and sometimes they didn't always work like they should have. But that's learning too. Like, what did we do wrong? Or maybe one of our materials was old, so it didn't do the right thing. But then afterwards, we'd look up experiment with, and you can almost find everything online. And then you can watch again, the same experiment and see what was the same and what was different. So that like you're talking about, the use of videos can be so valuable. Wouldn't say rely on them totally.
Right.
But to round out your learning, they're such a valuable resource.
Right. And as you get older, like things like, I guess, well, okay, math is the first thing that just jumps to my mind. Like, there's not many math experiments. So, and when you get into high school, you're not going to find like fun algebra videos, kind of thing. So there's a time and a place for that, but you have to really assess that. But I think videos are really helpful for, we go back to, we've talked about know your child's learning style, and definitely for a visual learner, you want to incorporate that somehow so that they can actually see it. Of course, the hands-on of actually doing, but then watching, which kind of removes them a little bit, but like Tracy says, but kind of cements the learning, is, I think, really important. One thing I should have prefaced with before I even went into this was never. I would never just plop your kid in front of a video. Like don't go by the title and say, okay, do this one. Like I would, of course, you know, you're homeschooling, you're a busy mom, you don't have time to go through the whole course, but at least watch maybe the first lesson, or if they have an introduction, uh, but always preview. If you're on YouTube,
Oh yeah.
totally preview, because just actually, if you're on YouTube, I would suggest really watching with them, because you're not going to have a whole course on YouTube. Uh, you know, they're just going to be snippets of things and ads and stuff like that. And plus, it kind of gives a nice activity for you to do with your teen. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would usually vet the night before if I knew, okay, we're going to do tornadoes tomorrow, we're going to look it up. Because one of the things is I didn't want to waste time
Right.
during our homeschool because then they get, distracted and trying to get them back in. So I wanted, even though it might take me 10 minutes the night before, it wasn't, ta taking away valuable homeschooling time where they're on task.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and trust your judgment too. Just because somebody says, "Oh, this is a great course," like even your best friend says, "Oh, this is a great course. You know, my kids love this for, for biology or whatever." Like that doesn't mean your child's going to like it. So, I mean, it is good to get, people's suggestions. Sometimes, it's just like for a writer, the worst thing is having that blank piece of paper in front of you. For a homeschooler, the worst thing is not knowing like where to start with the search. So it is good to get, do some questioning with people that you know and trust. And what have you used with your teen for this or whatever? But still, you still want to vet because you know your child best and situation and stuff.
I just want to add as well, like sometimes you explain something to your child and you can tell they're just not getting it. And oftentimes math can be like that. And so you feel like, okay, I'll explain it a different way, but they're still not getting it. That is one of those key times where maybe somebody else, the way they explain it, is going to click with your child. So I know my son, when he went to university in engineering, some of the math courses, pretty high level courses, he was like, I remember I took this, but I didn't really understand the use. So most of the time, rather than using his university textbook, as they did subjects, he would go look them up because he wanted to know the application. Because that's how we had taught. Like, if you're doing this math, what's it for? Okay, so you have this formula, big deal. What's it for? So he had continued that into university. So when he was doing a topic in math, he's like, okay, yeah, great, but what's it for? So he would often Google that, and boy, did that ever cement it in his brain. He said then when he was working, he understood, oh yeah, I can use this math to do this type of coding or whatever. I don't understand it, so beyond me now, but I know he regularly did that and found that really helpful to search by topic and by application.
Right. I mean, definitely the amount of knowledge that is being made available to us on the internet is just like it makes my brain explode to think, So really, you want to be careful, how you're searching and be very intentional. But yeah, definitely, it's amazing, like the things that you would not imagine that would, yeah, they're on the internet. So.
And also sometimes I've met families that have like a lot of kids and they'd like their kids to do like music lessons or something, and sometimes from a budget standpoint it's not possible. But now there's a lot of free, learn to play guitar or learn to play piano or whatever. So that's another avenue as well. And I always find it's much better in person, even with music, but it's a good way to vet whether they really and truly have an interest, that they're going to go beyond lesson five and then be so into it. And then you know that, okay, that's a valuable place to put some resources because that particular child really excels in a particular area. So that's another thing to do as well.
That's a great idea to just vet their interest. I love that. Yeah, because one of the things you said, and I know homeschoolers have been given the moniker of cheap for a long time, and that really kind of gets under my skin. I mean, on one hand, you can understand most of us, most homeschooling families were single income, and many of them still are. But now with more online businesses and the ability to work online, there are a lot of, two income. It's possible to work while homeschooling, basically. but free is nice, and sure you can look for free, but I just want to put that caveat out there to not rely on that. I mean, there are times, and Tracy just alluded to that. There are times when it is worth putting the money in and finding. We can pay for what we value,
Yes.
and we find the money, somehow, and certainly your child's education is valuable and it's worth it. So, free might be a great way to introduce something, to assess interest, like you said. But don't use that as your only qualification
Yes.
for anything in your homeschool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, okay, so that was a freebie.
Free advice.
So that's all I. Did you have anything else?
No, I think it's just, again, it's another tool that you can use in your homeschool that can super enhance it, or can take over. So again, it's like
Right.
everything else, there's a place for it and a time for it, and I think can be super valuable. And so I hope you do use videos in your homeschooling experience, and that you super enjoy your homeschooling, because it can be so fun and fabulous.
That's right. That's right. So we'll have extended show notes with all the links that we've mentioned, and I'll also kind of summarize the suggestions that Tracy had too, just in case you weren't able to take notes while you were listening to this episode. So thank you for being here with us. We love being here every week. So go ahead and follow us. I'll put the link in the show notes as well, so that you can get notice of every episode that drops, when it drops, and we love to have you here week to week. So thank you. And we'll end up now. And Tracy, of course, why don't you just repeat that wonderful bit of encouragement that we leave you with?
So enjoy your homeschooling, enjoy your kids,
Oh,
have
yes.
fun with it. Learning is awesome. And you moms, you keep learning too.
Yes.
Enjoy your week.
Bye bye, everybody.